Well, hello once again to everyone. Wow, I'm sitting so far back. Would it be too much to ask if some of you could come a little closer? Thank you. Thank you. So once again, I definitely want to thank all of you for taking some time out of your lives to come to this event, to share in this space, and to hear my personal experience as a family member that have lost a loved one to police terrorism, as we see happening across the United States today. And so, before I really get started, I just want to ask a couple of questions. Again, who actually seen the movie Fruitvale Station? Raise your hand. So for all those that have seen the movie, we from the family definitely want to thank you for, again, just going to the theaters and seeing Fruitvale Station, whether it was at the theater, on Netflix, even Comcast. Thank you. And for those who haven't seen it, I can only just recommend that you see it so that you can really feel Oscar throughout the film, because it actually gives you an opportunity to relate to him. And I'm sure most will agree with me that when you see the whole movie, you know that Oscar could have been your nephew or your brother, somebody that you know, a friend of yours. And, and so the Fruitvale Station movie itself was to share with the world the love that we had for Oscar and the pain of losing a loved one in the way that we did with Oscar. So, MSNBC, what you just seen, was more accurately reflective of what happened on that BART platform. So how many of you were in the Bay Area when Oscar was murdered? Okay, not quite off the whole group. And how many of you actually participated in the protests and the rallies and things that took place behind Oscar's murder? A couple, okay. How many of you actually been a part of a protest of any shooting or anything? Raise your hand. Okay, and there's some that haven't. Rallies and protests speaks to the issues that plagues our community or plagues you personally. And so being a part of that movement helps bring about that change that we hope. And for any change to come, we as a community must be involved in making that change a reality. So that means we must come outside our doors, connect with other people that feel and see the same things that we see that needs to be changed, and become a part of that movement to make it happen. And so it's my hope tonight that we all, I'm not a Trump fan, so let me put that out there for you now. But we all that feel issues that are troubling us become part of a movement to really bring systemic change. We no longer can sit and just let things happen, because you are then part of the problem. And so in order to bring real systemic change, we must be part of the movement that attempts to make that happen. And it requires a mass movement on our part to make that happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, again, MSNBC, what happened in court, the end of the trial, into our journey and where we're at today. So as you saw, on January 1st, 2009, Oscar Grant was shot in the back by Johannes Mersley at the Fruitvale BART station. Tony Peroni really instigated the whole thing, and he never was charged, even though he had stolen money from the state of California when he was actually fired. He went into the military, he continued to draw his unemployment benefits, and part of him trying to get his job back, that was investigated and found out that he had did that, committed that criminal act, and was able to pawn off the felony that he was going to receive on his wife, and made her the one to take the fall for him. You know, this is just the real story of what happened with Tony Peroni. So he's walking around somewhere you know, for what I know, he went back to the military. And he's not a normal character. He shouldn't have never been a police officer in the first place. That's his story. For us to see my nephew Oscar get murdered was extremely painful. So what I'm going to share, I hope you hear this. So on December 31st, Oscar was really heavy on my spirit. And he stayed on my spirit until I actually felt that I needed to text him. And I texted him at 12:40, and I said, "Uncle, love you. God loves you. God loves your family." And an hour and a half later, he was murdered. When I saw that video, I can remember collapsing on the floor, passing out. But when I came to, I was full of rage. I was extremely angry. And in that anger, God brought to memory how blessed I was to be able to text Oscar. And what I've learned from that text was not for Oscar, it was for me. So anytime someone is on your heart heavy, your family, your brother, sister, friend, loved one, just somebody, reach out to that person, because we don't know the time of the hour, but more importantly, we don't know what we may go through if we fail to respond when they are calling us through our spiritual self. Because many turn to alcohol, many turn to violence, many wreck their lives, and many does things that many of us wouldn't consider appropriate. When I came back in my anger, mine was extreme destruction. But God brought back to memory that text was for me, and that this mission was much more bigger than just tearing up something. It was about building. It was about taking my pain to purpose. It was about exposing the heinous act of police terrorism around this country. But more importantly, it was what the community did for me and our family. The community embraced us. They cried with us. They went back and forth to court with us. They prayed for us. They prayed with us. But most importantly, they spoke in their own First Amendment right to the issue of that police murder that they saw. And because of that, for the first time in California state history, an officer was arrested, charged, convicted, and sent to jail. That is historic. So we don't count it as a victory because young men are still dying, young females are still dying, but it is historic. For the first time in California state history, this community, the Bay Area community, came together and was able to get an officer arrested, charged, convicted, and sent to jail. That is huge, because if we're paying attention to what's happening across the United States when it comes to police shooting, that does not happen. There's a real strong history of activism in this community. So if you're born here, it's in your blood, it's in your DNA. If you transplant here, you will acquire it because of the fact that we will protest everything. If you know the Bay Area, we will speak about it if it's not right. I mean, have some of you witnessed that? I mean, that's just the reality of this community, because in the 40s, the 30s and 40s, when black folks and white folks were moving out here to get these jobs in the Bay Area, there developed some confrontation because black folks felt they were just entitled to it just like white folks. But Oakland decided to go down south to Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, to recruit them Jim Crow police officers to come back to Oakland to quell this black population that was speaking about its rights. And it created an antagonistic relationship. And what came out of that? Anybody know? You heard of the Black Panthers? Okay. The Black Panthers was birthed out of that. California had the first congressional hearing on police brutality in the nation in 1950, right in Sacramento. So I'm just giving you a little backdrop of the environment that you're in, because it was here, as you know, many protests took place at Cal Berkeley. We could go on and on and on about what this Bay Area has done, not just here, but throughout the world, because as California goes, so does the United States and throughout the world. So it's very rich here in activism. So for you being here tonight, I want to say thank you. And it's my hope that you become part of bringing real structural change of what we need in this United States. So I'm going to go back to the scene on the platform. As we know, Oscar was murdered by Johannes Messerly. He did not have a gun. He was not intoxicated. He didn't have no alcohol level above 2.0. There was nothing wrong with him, but what happened, and many of you might have not caught it, when he said, "You're going to jail," Oscar got up on his knees and put his hands behind his back. Instead of Messerly handcuffing him while he was on his knees with his hands behind his back to be handcuffed, he pushes him down. That wasn't no accident. He pushed him down purposely. And as Oscar fell, he fell on his arms across Carlos Reyes' legs. Carlos was hollering, "He's on my legs, he's on my legs." Oscar had Tony Peroni that cracked the bones in his face when he was with his knee on his neck, pushing his face through the floor. His face hit the floor, but as he was pushing him down, he was cracking the bones in his face. His knee was choking him, so he was telling him he couldn't breathe, and Johannes Messerly was on his back. Tony Peroni was 6'1", 250 pounds. Johannes Messerly, 6'7", 270 pounds. He had 600 pounds officer on his back. As Tony Peroni switched his knee, Oscar was able to put his hands behind his back to be handcuffed again. And this time, Johannes Messerly stands up, shoots him in the back, and then says, "Tony, I thought he had a gun." And that was his claim until he got Michael Raines as attorney. And they knew that that wasn't going to fly, so they had to develop some defense to keep him from going to prison, which was, I made a mistake by drawing my weapon instead of my taser. But what a lot of people don't realize is that that picture Oscar took was the second time he pulled his taser out. When he came up on the platform, he pulled his taser out and said, "Get back." He holstered it. In the heat of the struggle, he pulled his taser out, pointed at Oscar, and Oscar took a picture. That was utilized in evidence to show that he had removed his taser twice. And then this third time, he claimed he was reaching for his taser, he reached for his gun. So the argument was he was confused on where his taser was at. But yet when he needed it, he pulled it out as if he knew where it was at. You know, and so as we move into the courtroom, the very first thing I talked about was the community embracing us. Judge Robert Perry said to us on the very first day, "I'm not intimidated by no mob crowd outside. You," he pointed to us as a family, "will need to go out there and tell them to leave, or I will make this case last 5, 7, or 10 years. A direct assault on a First Amendment right to speak to the very injustice. So we were instructed and demanded by him to tell you to go home. But we did not, because it was you that embraced us. It was you that stood with us. And so we refused to do that. But it was because of you, too, that was able to get Johannes Messerly arrested, charged, convicted, and sent to jail. Had we told you to go home, he wouldn't even got the 11 months. We got to be clear about that. So it's community pressure, it's community activism that can bring about better results. In the middle of the trial, Michael Raines was making the argument that Oscar was trying to resist arrest. So he took the silhouette of Oscar's body, where the bullet went through his back, out his chest, hit the concrete on the floor, bounced back up, and went back into his body and collapsed his lung. That's how he lost his lung. Saying that because Oscar's body was 45 degrees off the platform floor, and the bullet went in a 45-degree angle, that means Oscar was trying to get up and run. This was the argument. But this is what really hurt us bad, and even the reporters were spooked in reporting it. He said, "Your Honor, I'd like to add this as Exhibit KKK. Now, exhibits came in as 1, 2, 3, or 4 in some chronological order, or they came in some alphabetical order. A or AA or AA or BBCC, but he jumped to KKK. You hear what I'm saying? This is the type of punishment that we were going through in the courtroom just so that we could not get the justice that we wanted. And of course, as the jury began to deliberate, you, the jury, came back with the idea that you somewhat bought his belief that he might have made a mistake and felt that it was involuntary manslaughter. But California also carries an enhancement law that says that if anyone is killed with a weapon, they automatically get 10 years. So if it's a first-degree murder and I kill you with a weapon, it's an additional 25 years on top of the years that I'm going to get for the first-degree murder. If it's an involuntary murder, but I kill you with a weapon, it's an enhancement charge of automatically 10 years. So we knew when you came back with a guilty verdict on the gun enhancement, not the gun enhancement, but the involuntary manslaughter, that's a 2, 3, or 4 year term. So we knew Judge Robert Perry would give him the low term, 2 years, but we knew the gun enhancement that you came back and said that he was guilty for the murder with a gun enhancement charge meant that he would get automatically on the low term 12 years and at the max 14 years. But Judge Robert Perry said, I'm troubled by that. And I'm going to throw the gun enhancement out. Took it off the table, told us we had the right to appeal it if we didn't like it. But I'm not going to let that stand. And I'm going to give Johannes Mosley 2 days served for every day he already spent in jail. Reduced his time down to 11 months. Thereby, when he was sentenced to 2 years to prison, by giving him 2 days, it reduced it down to 11 months where he didn't have to go to prison. And then on the very last day, he said, I don't know why you keep saying that this is about black and white. My God, we just gave you a black president. Okay.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
So this judicial figure, Judge Robert Perry, told us that because we gave you a black president, that there's no more racism that exists in this world.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to share the inside scenes of the courtroom, that if families get there, the experience that they go through is unbelievable. It's one thing losing your loved one to the murder in the way that we did. It becomes another when they're crucified, demonized, and criminalized in the courtroom in front of your eyes by those or by a system that we thought that we all had the right to some form of real freedom, justice, and equality. And it really puts a dagger in your heart in how you perceive and see things that exist from that day forward. So for me, it became extremely important that I embrace every possible family that God could allow me to embrace, to let them know that they weren't alone. Because this is what the community did for us. Had it not been for that embrace, there's no way I or any family member would have been able to stand. And so it was put on my heart that the very first thing that I must do when a family suffered this type of pain was embrace them. To let them know that they're not alone, that I understand. And to love them as much as I possibly could to help them be able to at least stand with some hope in their heart that they might get some form of justice. And of course, from that embrace, building back up the emotion, we then introduced to the community so that they can become a part of the movement in the community, again in hopes to be able to be the spokesperson for their loved one as the community moves forward in seeking justice for their loved one. The shirt that I have on, how many of you heard of Emmett Till? Okay, for those who haven't heard of Emmett Till, it's real crucial to understand who he was and what happened to him to see where we're at today. I mean, you can go beyond Emmett Till, but I use that as a starting point because May May, the mother of Emmett Till, did something that was so tremendous. She was really the catalyst of what happened with the civil rights movement. Emmett Till was killed in 1955, but what May May did was, well, let me tell you Emmett Till first, for those that don't know. He was a young 14-year-old that lived in Chicago. He was going down for the summer to Money, Mississippi to spend with his family. He had a speech impediment where he might stutter or he'd whistle, but anyhow, an older white woman said that he attempted to flirt with her. He whistled at her. And her husband and her brother, his brother-in-law, came to the house, pulled Emmett Till out the bed, just mutilated his body. This is a 14-year-old, and then threw him in the Tallahatchie River with a fan tied to him. His body resurfaced, some fishermen saw it, pulled him out the water. It was reported, and it was discovered it was the 14-year-old Emmett Till. May May was so appalled at what happened that during the funeral, she decided to have an open casket for the world to see what happened to her baby. And it was that view that many saw that pricked their heart enough to become part of the movement that was taking place at that time, which was called the Civil Rights Movement. Martin Luther King was speaking. Of course, Malcolm X was speaking. But many were in favor of Martin Luther King, and so that movement propelled the Civil Rights Movement. And what we got in place at that point was the 1964 Civil Rights legislation, of course, Brown versus the Board of Education. Various civil rights amendments came into existence, or legislation came into existence because of her courage of doing that. Sadly, in Michael Brown's case, it was an image really that was reflective of what happened to Emmett Till. Yeah. In Oscar Grant's case, it was an image reflective of what happened during the lynching days. So from our perspective, when we talk about our perspective, we're talking about black people perspective, when we see incidents like that, it's very reflective of the historical pain and struggle that we went through in the past. And so that trauma is revisited. And many shell up, many get angry, many get involved in hopes that this can never happen again. So if you're white and you see the issues that exist within the community, you see it in the structural racism that exists, the institutionalized racism, and you turn a blind eye, that means you have accepted the way things are and become just as culpable of putting them in place, though you may say that I'm not racist in any kind of way. But yet, you have come to understand that it exists. You come to see that there's some improprieties that are taking place, and yet you don't speak on those issues. Becomes problematic in making real freedom, justice, and equality exist. So if we are really focused in our moral compass and we see these issues happening, we don't turn a blind eye. We cannot. Because it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. And at some point, it'll be knocking at your door too. So we have an obligation as a community, as a people of goodwill and nature, with the moral compass to make things right for the future generations that are coming. How much time do I have? I just want to make sure, because I always like to have questions and I can talk and talk.
We're decided to go till 8.
Oh, we decided to, oh.
Yes, it is, yes. So we have until, we have about half an hour.
Okay, okay, great. You know, there's so much I can say from my experience, you know, because I've worked with Trayvon Martin family, the Michael Brown families, Freddie Gray's families, the Romali Grahams, the Eric Gardners. You know, I can go on and on with the families, all across this country, we get calls. We got a call the other morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning. It was coming out of Texas of a young man being killed, and the family traumatized, and they asked, what can we do? You know, and financially, if God allows us to be able to get there, we go there and we embrace this family. If he doesn't, we do what we can over the phone, or we call someone that we know in that area to walk in our space to help this family begin their journey in hopes to get justice. Can I ask you to bring up our website?
Sure.
And also, I have some brochures here of our website and what we do that will be passed out. And then I have some, you have those cards too. So, what happened to Oscar, as we know, had it not been for the video recording of commuters like yourself that have cell phones, none of us would know who Oscar Grant is today. So these cards that I'm going to have you come from the ACLU called Cell Phone Mobile Justice will direct you to how to download an app to put on your phone so that if you see an act of police terrorism happening, you can video record it. It's automatically downloaded to a data bank so that if your phone is taken or the video that you recorded is erased, it's not gone, but it's in a bank at the ACLU. And so this, you know, so I share this because I want all of us to understand that we have a weapon that can help us also bring real clarity to the wrong that we see happening around the country. Thank you. That's fine.
And then if you want to navigate it, it's up on here, and if it shuts down, you won't open it up again.
Okay. This is the home page. And this is an event we did in 10-10-15, just to give you an idea. And we did it in Washington, D.C. And we had close to how many families? 200. About 200 families. And by the way, this is my lovely wife, Beatrice. Everyone calls her Auntie B, who, you know, I must say, has really been my backbone in doing this work. She's a mother, and she hasn't lost our son, but she witnesses these mothers' pain to a different degree than I do. I've now learned how to focus more on the men that has been affected because we're the unheard voice. So there is a fatherhood movement that has taken off now, where fathers are coming together and speaking to this very issue, and actually have become change agents in their communities concerning some of the issues that may be plaguing the community, but how to bring this information to their community so that they can help create some change. But in this particular photo, we have, of course, Eric Gardner's mother, Danielle New, who's sitting next to Eric Gardner's mother, happened to be the young lady that lost 2 sons within 19 days. While she's burying the first young one, the second one is killed, all within 19 days. Of course, my sister's there. Robbie told his mother, I know you're probably trying to figure out who I'm talking about, but if you go to the website, right, and you click Meet the Families, it takes you to another page just like this. And if you click on their face, it'll open up and give you some information on the family. And I just kind of walk that. So, you know, then I set links there so you can learn a little bit about Eric Gardner, who he is, and then you can also learn who the mother is. You know, and so I just definitely wanted to share that with you. One of the things that helps us do our work, right, is that finances. If you're able to go to the website, make a donation, it would be tremendously helpful, because one of the things we're doing right now on June the 15th, 16th, 17th, we'll be in Detroit at the Allied Media Conference. We have a network gathering where we actually taking 40 families through various workshops, through various mental health treatment training. We have therapists there, various activists that talk about media, how media work, how to share with the world your loved one, but also how to understand this particular movement. Because many of these families, as you know, are still in the process of hoping to get the officer arrested, or in the process of hoping to find some form of justice through the civil litigation. And even just hoping to be able to change some various legislation in their communities that will help this not to occur again. And so even on the website, you can find the network gathering that we're doing in Detroit. The goal is to take 40 families. We're raising $20,000. Any donation that you can give for that, that'll be great. This is going to be a big event. It's going to be the first time in the nation that we actually brought families from families. Normally it's created and done by a bigger organization or activists that help us make it happen. But this is actually run by families. Very similar to what London, England does. They have what you call a United Family and Friends Coalition that does a big event every year, and it's ran strictly by families, and then everybody else come in and help. Because we, the families that have suffered this pain, know specifically what are some of the things that can help bring this struggle more clarity. So visit the website, download the app, and let me ask if there's any questions that any of you may have concerning the movie, concerning the trial, concerning the movement, or anything that you're not certain about. Yes, sir.
Well, I was thinking, this is part of the Mothers of the Movement at the Democratic Convention. These are part of the Mothers of the Movement.
Yeah, way before that even occurred, we had already created the Mothers of the Movement.
Yeah, okay. Now the question is then, do you relate specifically to Black Lives Matter? And I saw the article, they're moving to the state level now. They're still doing actions where people are under threat or people have been killed, black and brown, they're still doing that, I suppose. But it's a wider movement, not just for black and brown youth, but for gay and transgender and disabled and maybe Muslim too now because of the threats all the way around. But do you relate to Black Lives Matter, or how do you relate to them? Or
So, of course, I relate to Black Lives Matter for the simple fact that Oscar was the birthing stone of Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Elisa Garza, of course, Patrice Coyers, and Opal Topo, I forget how to say her last name, out of New York. All were really affected by Oscar, but their voice came to life at the Trayvon Martin murder.
Right.
Okay, and so I do various events with them. I'm, you could say, on the outskirts of a part of Black Lives Matter, because my focus has always been families matter.
Yeah, okay.
You know, but definitely work with Black Lives Matter in the way of doing various conferences, events, and we understand too that in order to really bring systemic change, that we all must work together to make that happen. So in that way, and then my wife, I guess, want to add. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to say, because he had brought up about Hillary Clinton.
Oh yeah.
And of the movement.
Yeah.
Actually, she just used the mothers. It wasn't, she had no, it was a political ploy. The sad part is that they were able to be used like that. Because, like, even afterwards, I mean, all this stuff that's happened afterwards, where are you?
Okay.
All these girls are missing all over the place, and black lives are falling. Well, where are you, Hillary? If you really care. If you really care. So I just wanted to be clear. First of all, the first Mothers Movement really kind of started in Oakland in 2011. Uncle Bobby brought all the mothers together, and we had mothers come together to talk about their pain, and it went from there. So I just want to dispel anyone who thinks that Hillary Clinton started the Mothers of the Movement. No. She did not start the Mothers of the Movement. She used these mothers and their pain for her own personal gain, which she gained nothing. Because wrong is wrong. It'd be different if she really cared about them. But she did not. Because if she really cared, after the election, she would still be speaking. Have you heard her say anything about anybody's show of color? No. I just wanted to make that very clear.
And I'm going to give you a little backdrop too. So my sister was a part of the Mothers of the Movement. It was actually 9 mothers. And Hillary had promised all the mothers that they'd have a minute to a minute and a half to speak about their child. And while they're speaking, on the big screen as we saw, their face would be seen by the world. All of us that paid attention to the Democratic National Convention, right? But the police union attacked Hillary. Or maybe they didn't, but to our understanding, Hillary came up under attack by the police union. And the police union said, hold up, if you're going to let these criminal mothers speak, then you have to let the mothers that had just lost their sons that were police officers in Dallas. And so there was a major controversy that took place. So as you know,
They were going to pull their support too.
right, they was going to pull the support. As you know, my sister didn't get to speak. Just look at it this way. So Hillary was pushed into the corner to where she had to pick 3 mothers. So she picked Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin, as you know, wasn't killed by the police. She picked Lucy McBath, the mother of Jordan Davis. How many of you heard of Jordan Davis? The loud music in Jacksonville, Florida, where the young man, well, Michael Dunn shot into the car. There's a movie out called 3.5 Minutes, 10 Bullets. Yeah, you got to see that. It's on Comcast. Michael Dunn was charged. He actually was convicted for attempted murder on the 3 friends, but they hung on the murder of Jordan. So Angela Corey, I think her name is, retried the case. She didn't want to, but she did. And they convicted him of murder of Jordan Davis. So he's basically going to be in jail for the rest of his life. But my point is that Michael Dunn was a white gentleman that was full of racism that killed Jordan Davis, not police. And then, of course, Geneva, what's Geneva's last name? Sandra Bland's mother. I forget her last name. But anyway, Sandra Bland's mother, as we know, how many of you heard of Sandra Bland? Okay, Sandra Bland was in Houston, Texas, Texas. Forget the city. But anyway, she was in Texas, and she, supposed to have hung herself in jail. And it was a real big national news on the fact that Sandra Bland, never ever been in trouble with the police, was in Texas to take her new job, driving down a highway without her seatbelt on. Officer pulls her over, it turns into a big old mess. She's thrown on the ground, she's arrested, she goes to jail, and all of a sudden they find her in jail hung and said she committed suicide.
I don't think it was her seatbelt there.
Wasn't her seatbelt?
In there. No, it wasn't her seatbelt.
I thought it was her seatbelt.
No, he just felt like she was waiting for him to pass. You know how you go?
Yeah, they said she didn't use her signal.
Yeah, she didn't.
Oh, she didn't use a signal. That's right. That's what it was. You're right. Signal.
Something about,
Yeah.
you said she turned wrong.
Thank you for correcting me.
Okay.
Always correct me when I'm wrong. Right.
I love
But
that.
okay, thank you. That's what I'm saying. So, my wife has really helped in the struggle, because in our pain, you're really blind to what to do. You can say things that can hurt people. You can do things that are totally off cue of really what we're trying to get out there. And, she's always somehow been able to be balanced and stay focused and helping me take my pain to purpose instead of my pain to destruction. And so I am I'm a very, very lucky man. But anyhow, I'm just sharing that backdrop about what happened at the DNC. So the only 3 mothers that got to speak was, again, Sabrina Fulton, Lucy McBath, and Geneva, I forget Geneva's last name, who's the mother of Sandra Bland. And then none of the other mothers got to speak. And they were all brokenhearted, because what they were promised by coming to the DNC was that they'd be able to share with the world their loved one that was murdered, their child. And for someone then to tell you can't do that, and all this time you've been believing that this was an opportunity for the world to hear your voice. Because all these mothers want is people to hear them, to hear their story, to hear their love for their child, and then to be denied that is really heartbreaking. And so that's their struggle today concerning what happened in that event.
So, be clear, that Hillary is not, nor does she create, the mothers of the movement.
Yes, Kristen.
I was wondering if you could talk about the work you're doing, helping young men know the steps that...
Oh, sure.
I was wondering if you could talk about the work you're doing, helping young men learn the steps that they have to take if they ever get pulled over by a police officer, because that's not something a father of a white boy usually trains his white son to do, but it's something that you have started a whole educational program around.
Right. And what she's saying is that I actually do a workshop at many conferences all over the country, even various schools. It's 10 rules to knowing your rights when stopped by the police. You know, and so, especially as a black male and female, because we know females today are being killed at 8% faster. I'm sorry, not killed, but arrested at 8% faster than black men today. You know, and so it appears to be the new target is black female. But this training really helps equip you to understand your rights as a person that may be stopped by the police. What is it that you need to do to be able to get home, to share with your family, especially if you're your child, your mother and your father, in hopes to get some form of redress to what you experienced. And so that's, has been part of my goal, because we can say, Oscar didn't do anything wrong. He did share, hey, I have a daughter, don't tase me. We're going home, everybody be cool. He was really the peacemaker on that platform. In the movie, I think they had him say, bitch, or something like that.
Yeah,
well, in reality, he didn't do that. I mean, it was testified, you could hear, because it was able, the FBI was able to elevate the sound. And Tony Peroni stood over Oscar and said, bitch ass nigga, and when he did that, that means Mesley then, he had shot it. That was going to jail, that was going to jail. And, the mess started from that part. So, the movie, by the way, so that you'll know, is like 98% accurate. On the platform, you saw some variations to what really happened with the real video. So, there's always going to be some rendition of a movie that takes place that's supposed to be real, 100% accurate. It's never going to be 100% accurate. A good example is this. What happened, those that didn't see the movie, there's a scene, I hate telling you this, because you may see it and I'll mess it up. But I'm going to share it only just so that you can get what I'm saying. There's a scene where my sister goes to visit Oscar in San Quentin, and they get into this argument. And she gets mad, and she walks out of the prison. And Oscar is like real upset, real upset. You gonna leave me in here? You gonna walk on, My sister didn't feel that, because that would have never happened, right? And so we saw the film for the first time at the Sundance Film Festival, and she was upset. She really did not want that film to lead her at the Sundance Film Festival, because she said, my son would have never done that. Matter of fact, I'd be locked up with him had he had done that. But we worked with her to say that there may be a mother out there that have that experience. And to come to find out, as we followed the film around, and we have these panels and discussion, there were mothers that will walk up to me and say, that scene is exactly what happened to me and my son. And that was a confirmation that Ryan had a vision, that when he brought this to reality, he wanted everybody to be able to relate. Oscar was not a saint, though we wish he was, and though we had him, I say we, his mama, of course our family, had him in church every Sunday. I mean, he was 5 years old, and he'd pray in front of 2,000 people in church. That's how gifted that young man was, and filled with God's Spirit. You know what I'm saying? And so, if it would have been left up to my sister, he would have been a straight saint, but then how many people would have really related? Because not every young black man is a straight saint. Oscar had his faults, just like I have my faults, just like we all have faults. And so we have to be real about how we share a person to the world instead of trying to camouflage and want people to see what we want them to see. You know, and as she got past that, then she understood how significant and important that part was. You know, so I'm sorry for sharing that part. But for those who haven't seen the movie, you have to see it to get the gist of what I'm saying. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you so much first. Seriously, thank you for sharing experience that still holds a significant amount of pain and using it to still fight and impact others. So thank you for that first off.
Oh, you're welcome.
Every time I attend events like this or I have conversations around this, I cannot help but evaluate how deeply, systematically all these issues just hold. And as I was watching the clip, and I've seen the movie, but like watching it again was like almost watching it for the first time all over again. And I mean, I had to just close my eyes and breathe at some points to keep not only the anger, but the sadness, everything that was welling up inside of me. And I started to write reflections, and I just can't help but to think about how it feels like we have not pulled away from this commodification of black and brown bodies in this country. And the reason why we cannot, or we have to fight to find healing in a system that thrives off of our suffering is because we still aren't seen as being full beings. And so I would love to hear your opinion on how do you fight a system like that still sees us as having price tags on our bodies. And so to not only just kill us, but then treat your family how you were treated through the process that should have brought some kind of healing, but didn't. So yeah, please, I would love to hear your opinion. So
if you heard what she said, which is so true. So we know about emancipation, and there was this so-called freedom that black people were granted. But yet, black codes hit us. How many of you know heard of black codes? So black codes is a word that you should look up. You understand what I'm saying? There was another form of servitude that we was placed in even though we thought we were legally free. And so we went through the struggle and we got the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments. I'm not proud of the 13th, but to some degree it was part of the struggle that came into reality. We thought we made some gains. But bam, Jim Crow hit us. How many of you heard of Jim Crow? Okay, so then we're moving through time. Jim Crow is going on. So there's a major reconstruction that has taken place. As we know, Emmett Till is killed, Martin Luther King is speaking loud, Malcolm X is turn the other cheek. If you slap me on my cheek, I'm going to slap you. You hear what I'm saying? So there was a struggle that was going on. And as Mamie left that coffin open, I talked a little bit about it, we began to get some momentum. And so we thought to some degree with the civil rights legislation being put in place that we had arrived. But LBJ talked about law and order. And so really that's the struggle we're in today. So there was an underhanded thing that began to take place about law and order. The police being in the streets, really, really attacking our right. So it's been a struggle ever since. And once I came to the conclusion of understanding that, what became important for me was, again, first the embrace of a family. Letting them know that this is not an isolated situation. This is not just one bad cop that just happened to wake up one morning, think crazy, and commit a murder. This is systemic. It runs to the very core of the police department, and all the issues that we see happening all around this country is really a piece of how the United States was built. And when we come to really understand the history of the United States and its existence, capitalism in itself, and what it was built off of, then we become really appalled and begin to wonder, is there something better than this? Is there something better than this? But if we take our body and we think about it, we have a heart, we have a brain, we have an eye, we have a toe, we have legs, we have all that, right? It all functions together. Not one is the essence of us existing. You hear what I'm saying? Because we're all happy to be able to see, hear, and taste, and walk, and talk, and think. So our system must be built in a similar fashion. So what does that look like? Well, some of us talk about socialism. Well, what is socialism? You know, what is it that we can take this system to that can bring such a change that we all can feel that we are part of, but yet not experiencing the degradation and the pain, the homelessness, and the death of somebody that looks like me on a regular, consistent basis that seem to be a part of this system that's creating that. So, you know what I do? As I embrace each family, it actually helps empower me to believe that a real change is going to come. When I speak to students like yourselves and I share my struggle and my pain and hope to give some clarity about taking a look at this overall system and understanding how it exists, how did it get here, how did we get where we at, and where are we at? Because this particular time here should be telling you a whole lot. And in my earlier days, I can say the very foundation of this country was hemorrhaging on police accountability, police transparency, and Black Lives Matter. This system, as you know, is hemorrhaging on, we could say the way Trump thinks. Now, I don't know if any of you are a Trump fan in here, but I am not. And the type of danger that he brings to us should make us all think that there must be something better than this, and how do we bring it into existence? So each of us now has a requirement to begin to think about it, what it is that we can make or bring into existence that'll make our lives better for our children and our grandchildren. Because if we fail, what kind of life will they have? So I stay prayed up. I'm very optimistic, and I know God has the final answer. So my spiritual connection, my knowledge of the history of the struggle that we're in, and not turning a blind eye to it, and calling it what it is. I mean, you know, we cannot be afraid of the word of what white supremacy is. What is white supremacy? What does that represent? Is that the way of the world? Because if you say it's the way of the world, then you condone everything that you see. That's me speaking. Or what is white privilege? If there is such a thing called white privilege, then how is it that you, especially being white, fit into this word white privilege, and what does it really mean? Is there real disparities that are existent in this economy? Is it? You hear what I'm saying? So what is it that we can do to make this place a better place for all of us? And when we begin to get in tune with that, we all know we got some work to do. And if we all begin to work, we can all bring a change. But if we don't feel there's nothing wrong with the way the system is, there's going to be always some real trouble. And this system is going to implode before it explodes. It's going to implode. You hear what I'm saying? Like having a heart attack. And it's going to change then. You know. Yes.
Well, there is white privilege, of course, and police brutality to black people and other, I don't know what you call them, people that they can be brutal to. And the police brutality, though, also extends beyond that. And a case in point for me is a shocking thing that I never imagined could happen, was that my daughter was brutalized by a policeman in Georgia. She's a white woman. She was asleep in her car, and she didn't get out of the car when he told her to. She wasn't drunk or anything. And he reached in, grabbed her, sprained her wrist, pulled her out of the car, threw her face down on the pavement, knelt on her, gave her a big concussion, lot of bleeding in her face, big gash in her cheek. And he was with two other policemen. They laughed. They thought that was fun. Then they took her to the police station and kept her for 12 hours with no medical care. So it can happen to anybody. Anybody that they feel they can do it to, and for whatever reason they want to. She had done nothing wrong. And so she was a white woman. But she was a woman. I think that had something to do with it. But no, they'll do it to anybody.
Right.
Anybody at all.
And so I hope all of you heard that. You know, and as I was speaking earlier, I said that though we know it's happening to us, at some point it'll be knocking at your door. It is knocking at your door.
It's knocking at your door.
It's knocking at your door.
It's knocking.
And so any one of us can become a victim of that type of crime. But the most likely person that will become a faster victim is a person that looked like me. You know, that's just the reality. You know, and so, but we're not exclusive to this pain. You know, as my sister here just shared, you know, your daughter.
My daughter.
Her daughter. You know, and we can imagine that they end up trying to criminalize her from that beating. Here's another thing, and then I'm gonna let you speak, babe, just 1 second. So we were just with a family in San Jose that had just lost their son. This family, the Latino family, was taken down to the police station in San Jose. The father and the mother were separated into interrogation rooms. Now they asking them questions about their son, they not knowing that the police killed their son. You hear what I'm saying? So they're asking questions, and we haven't got the details of the question, but I can imagine the questions were, have your son ever been arrested before? Has he ever had a mental episode where the police had to come? You know what I'm saying? So whatever they're telling them is going to be used to justify that killing of their baby. But this is what happened. While the father was being interrogated, he said he needed to take a smoke. And now he's not knowing he's been interrogated, but he needed to take a smoke break. So he goes out, take a smoke break, get a phone call. It's his brother saying, Jesus' his name. Jesus, I just seen Jesus on the news. He's been killed by the police. The father's in the police station, don't even know his son is killed. Once he hears that, he breaks down. He go get his wife. They just leave. But my point is this, right? It happened to a young man, family that don't speak great English. They're taken down to the police station, not even told that they just killed their son, separate them, asking them all these questions about their son to formulate a story to justify the shooting. Go ahead.
Okay, she had a question, but you didn't quite answer the question, but she really shared a lot of information.
Oh,
Say your question one more time. I'm trying to
how do we, I'm sorry, now I'm losing it. How do we fight a system, right, that we're supposed to find healing in, but thrives off of our pain and suffering?
Okay, so let me just say this before you say it.
Okay.
We're not going to find healing in the system. First of all, this system, especially people of color, this system, how long have we been here? Not by our will. We didn't voluntarily come over here. But we've been here over 460 years. This system is not for our healing. If we look at it, we've been oppressed, and we need mental health care as a people because of what we suffer, you know. So this is not built for us healing. But what we can do is know that this can't last forever. We're working for our children and our grandchildren for a better day. We might have to die, you know. We're gonna have to sacrifice, but it's not for us because that day is coming. You see what I'm saying? The time that we're in right now is really about that time, right? So we're working, and our healing comes from knowing that it's going to be better for our children and our grandchildren. And the reason why is because we're going to fight back. And we probably had some more Nat Turners and some more Harriet Tubmans back in the day, instead of us being full of fear, then it might not even be like this right now. But because we allow fear to restrict us, because it was taught to us, it was embedded in us. But once we put that fear aside, because I believe in freedom, justice, and equality for everybody. I don't care what color your skin is. That's how it should be. But when it's not like that, You gotta fight, fight, fight. And that's what we're gonna do. And that's how you heal. You heal by fighting for freedom, justice, and equality for all. That's it.
Right. I just add this really quick, Kristen. Dr. DeGruy wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, which is, matter of fact, should be in Oakland this Friday, this Thursday and Friday, this week. Anyway, it's a very powerful book, and it's about our struggle, it's about our pain, and it's about the healing that we have never really gotten. You hear what I'm saying? So how do a black man or a black female that have this history of all this pain that's been perpetrated on us exist in this world and try to bring change? That's a real deep question. So for Trump to get in, just to give you a quick example, I'm sorry. Trump coming in our office, that don't spook us. Because we've been fighting these crazy presidents like him for a very long time. You see what I'm saying? But for many of you, you're starting to see this system as a very strange thing. You know, I mean, like, is this really happening?
Right.
But we've always had this experience. And so,
Yeah.
we already used to it. In other words, we're just getting exposed to
everybody's
it.
having the experience now. Or at least
Everybody's having the experience
a
now.
taste of what
We've always been
450
talking
years,
about.
yeah.
Yeah, go
A
ahead,
little
Christy.
taste of it.
Yeah.
So we did the Martin Luther King event, and Uncle Bobby and Beatrice came and talked, and it was really incredible hearing your story at the Nevada Unity in Marin. And that same week, there was a Black Lives March going up in Oakland, and also the San Rafael Police Department purchased the militarized tanks.
I remember that.
So that San Rafael Police Department is ready to bring forward. And that, to me, this movement of militarizing the police.
San Rafael Police owned.
The San Rafael Police Department purchased, it was in the IJ, somebody brought that IJ article and showed it to us, that the San Rafael Police Department purchased militarized police tank so that if anything were to happen to this white community, there is a militarized police state ready to be put into operation. This was really shocking. On the healing side, I just want to share my girlfriend, who is the daughter of a white mother and a black father, who were married in the South in the 50s when it was illegal, and so they fled to Canada. And her mom started in Canada potluck dinners. Once a month, they brought the black people from the community and the white people from the community. They all came together with their families and their kids. For 30 years, they've been having potluck dinners. So everybody could get to know each other, everybody could become friends, and then the kids could get to be friends with the other kids, and they all grew up. And so Bernice King, Martin Luther King's daughter, gave her mother the Lifetime Achievement Award that same year that we did the Martin Luther King event for potluck dinners. So that's what we're looking to do with our own community. Marin City, which has a lot of the black people living there, and Oakland, which is a little far, but not too far. You know, it's like we need to integrate, we need to get to know each other, we need to form friendships, we need to support each other in the marches and things like that, stand side by side for a better world for anybody. Because what Trump is doing, he's killing the environment, he's killing people. I mean, it's like, it's terrifying. Women's rights, I mean, the fact that we have to even have a conversation about birth control, it's like, are you kidding me? In this day and age. So, you know, it's, anyway, I don't want to take up more time.
So, I know it's getting late, and, you know, in closing, you know, again, this is a call to action. You're in school to be educated, but not miseducated. Because you know, you can be here and be really totally miseducated. Graduate with your degrees, your masters, your doctors, and still don't know nothing. Really what's going on in the world. And yet be able to purchase a nice white house with a white picket fence with a white dog, even a white car, and be happy. But the world is falling apart around you. So it becomes important that we open our eyes. It becomes important that we begin to take a look at what do we want the future to look like. And then we take into our soul the work that is required on our part to make it happen. Some of us might be the cookie maker, inviting your black friends or your Latino friends over to have a conversation. You know, some of you may be spoken word artists, and all it takes is a twist of the words to begin able to prick the white privilege that can't hear me but can hear you with certain words that you use to even prick their conscience, to pay attention to more issues and to become aware of these issues and to become part of the change. You hear what I'm saying? We all got a gift that God has given us. You don't have to go out there on the front line and pick up a brick and throw it to the window to prove you're an activist. That's not built. You know, not all of you are built that way. There are some that's called to do that, but you may be called just simply to be in school, get educated, become aware of this, and then talk to your family and begin to change their perception of things and how they see. We all got work to do. And there's no excuses for us not to be a part of this movement because, again, by not being a part of it, you're a part of the problem. You're actually just as culpable of the sickness that we see happening in this country by sitting down and just watching it happen. Matter of fact, agreeing to everything that Trump says. You know, I'm just real critical of him because I know what time it is. And yes, me personally, I'm very optimistic that a real change is going to come. The change is going to be really brought into reality by our youth. So I can only imagine what it may look like. But I believe they have the vision much more better than we do. And so it's my hope that we all, you know, understand that a change is going to come. Because when we look at the time and what it is, we know that, and historically, you know, I can talk, but historically, every major empire has fallen. Is it the United States' turn to fall? So what is it that we can do as the falling takes place to begin to shape a new world? You know, and we got to have some belief that it can happen. This monster of the destruction that we see going on does not have to be your reality, though it is existing. But in other words, it doesn't have to give you a pessimistic view of the future. And stay prayed up. Stay prayed up. Because as this monster falls, it's only going to get rougher. We haven't seen nothing yet. You hear what I'm saying? It's going to get rough. And we got to persevere. We got to believe. And we got to make this fight for the generations that are coming behind us in order to have some real belief that we can have that real freedom and justice. So thank you for allowing me to share some words. I hope I touched somebody. If it's just one, I've done some work. And again, from Oscar, from getting to know him, he says thank you. So we love you.